Okay. Now, on to the anime. Whee!
You have the floor.
Alright. So, as usual, for the stuff that I watch weekly, I'm going to do in order of airing, of how it aired. And the first was the Naruto Shippuden episode 378. Now, the Shinobi Alliance, the majority of which is pretty much anybody who isn't friggin' Sasuke and Naruto, pretty much are like, what the hell happened to the Ten Tails? Because they show you a bunch of other people like Sakura and Hinata wondering like, what the hell just happened? But of course, Hinata and her father are the only people other than the people than friggin' like Kakashi and Sasuke and Naruto who were right there. Other than them, Hinata and her dad were the only ones who knew what actually happened. Because, as you know, the Byakugan can see chakra. So they saw the Ten Tails chakra being absorbed by Obito. So they know that, and then of course Minato, who was there, is like, oh my god, I just realized that now he's finally realizing that Obito wasn't trying to revive Madara, he was trying to become the Ten Tails Jinchuriki with those symbols he was making. And that's when Hashirama and Tobirama quickly realize how big of a threat that is. Obito being the Ten Tails Jinchuriki is. The first Hokage tries to pin Obito, but he just quickly destroys the restraints and destroys the barrier that the four Hokage were upkeeping. Now, of course, in vain, Minato tries to call out to his former student, but he still hasn't fully gotten control of the power of the Ten Tails, so he doesn't even remember his own name at this point. Now, the other reincarnated Hokage just start going ham, trying to destroy, using the fact that they're immortal to try and subdue his power. But unfortunately, it just doesn't work. Hashirama can't even get into the fight because Madara's like, I'm tired of waiting. Let's go ham right now. And now Minato, knowing that Obito isn't in control of the Ten Tails yet, is trying to take advantage of that to try and defeat him before he gains control. Now, the best part, in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinion, the best part of the episode is when you go into Obito's mind and you see the metaphor of how, you see this picture of, him and former Team Minato and how it's slowly getting ripped apart while his body is physically, his mental body is physically getting ripped apart in his attempts to try and control the Ten Tails. And it's as it's slowly ripping his consciousness apart, his memories and everything's just getting destroyed. But then, of course, the thing that allows him to not only prevent him from losing all himself completely and gaining control of the Ten Tails is his memory and love of Rin. Rin. She's dead, and she's almost as annoying as Obito is. You know what I mean?
Right.
Of course, once gaining control, his body changes again to become the Sage of Six form, similar, not the Sage of Six Paths, similar form to the Sage of Six Paths. Now you might be thinking, well, why? How the hell? Why isn't it exactly like? Well, that's because if you're paying attention, not the 8 tails and the 9 tails haven't been absorbed. So he doesn't have all 9 tail beasts. So the 10 tail beast isn't not complete. And then of course he immediately tries to take out Naruto, Sasuke, and Minato in one big explosion. and that's pretty much the episode. It was, I would say, it was a good episode because it was decent pacing, and the whole thing, the metaphor part about Obito's consciousness was good, especially when they also compared it to what Sasuke was thinking when you saw him mentally imagining a picture of Team 7, and he's like, basically saying, Obito, no, you're not going to get to kill Naruto, and then you see the picture get slashed right through Naruto's face, and basically symbolizing that he wants to kill Naruto. Which, for those manga people, for those of you who read the manga, you know how big of a foreshadowing that is. How, of him wanting to take on Naruto himself. Alright, so I thought that was a good episode. There?
Yeah, you have the floor.
Well, I didn't I didn't hear you respond to my thoughts at all, since even though you didn't watch it, you read the manga, so you know this stuff. So you're like, oh, no comment on what I said.
I have my mic muted.
So I was
just go do the usual.
Yeah. All right. Well, next up on the list, a Fairy Tail episode 200. Woo woo, 200. Woo. Yeah. They found. I left something in your car. So anyway, yes, they finally reached episode 200 of Fairy Tail. So much fun. The episode was honestly overall probably the slowest episode of Fairy Tail I've seen in a long time. Mainly because it focused on the big confrontation between, or basically the big reveal of what happened to Altair as a result of using the spell. Now, it's like, in the manga, it was just, you saw her, and you were like, oh my god, that's her, and that was it. But in the episode, they decided to show you her going throughout the city doing, like, a normal day, at, trying to, deal with her new life as it is now, being really, really old, and leading up to the moment where she sees Gray, and Gray's like, oh my god, that's her, stop the carriage, I want to go see her, and then she just nods her head no, and, she also leaves a letter, or hands a letter to Jalal and Meldy, saying that it's from Altair, but since they don't recognize her because she's old, they don't know it's her. But of course, she disappears by the time they finish reading the letter and want to say something to her. Now, they also get, Jalal and Meldy also get approached by Doranbolt, who tells them that he used his memory-altering powers to make sure the council doesn't remember anything about the dragon attacks, or that the royal family was involved at all. And then he made the royal family swear secrecy about the Eclipse Project, all to protect the stability of the country as it is. But also reveals that Cobra, after the battle was over, turned himself in and relays that he heard something Doranbolt tells them that Cobra told them that he heard something that had to do with Tartarus, which means we finally got our first hint at the next major conflict, which is Tartarus. Now, for you manga readers, we are actually dealing with that, but for your anime readers, you still have some time to go before you get there. But they decided to bring it back into your mind, since we hadn't heard about it until the original mentioning of it when they were talking about the Barum Alliance, or they've only mentioned it 2 times prior to this. Both was mentioned to the Barum Alliance. The first time when Fairy Tail was going against Oration Seis, and the other time when they mentioned it when they were going up against Grimoire Heart. Now, this makes, for you anime readers, it's like, okay, Haracion Seis, gone. Defeated. Tartarus, defeated, gone. So, now, that it should be kind of sort of, hint, hint, that that's going to be the next thing that's going to happen. There's, Tartarus naturally, being a part of the Barham Alliance, has to become a threat, or the fairy tale is going to have to take him on at some point. So, thankfully, that's going to happen soon for you anime viewers. Not soon enough because I want, especially since there's a lot of stuff that I want to see animated. But now, so all of that together makes that part about the the door and bolt part I thought was very good, but the rest of the part just was very slow paced and just was very fluff filled and pad it so that way these two little parts could take up an entire episode. Now, what they plan on doing if they plan on doing any like filler episodes in between arcs, because Fairy Tail anime is known for doing a couple of filler episodes, like one-off filler story episodes in between arcs. So whether they're going to do that or they're going to go straight into the next arc is yet to be seen. So, alright. Now it's time for the final thing I watched this week. And hands down the best episode of anime among the weekly episodes I watched. One Piece episode 662. Because they dared to do what they did when they did this. It starts off with them showing Doflamingo shooting Law again. And then he basically lies to the crowds who witnesses saying, oh, Law was the one who caused the fake news to get out. And so it's like, okay, I'm killing him for him making the fake news. And Luffy's like, and then Luffy asks Doflamingo, what is he doing to Law? Which, of course, Doflamingo responds that Law was originally his subordinate, so it was my responsibility to, quote, unquote, educate him. Then Zoro and Kinemon attempt to save Law, but the Marines come in, and we get a brief clash between Fujitora and Zoro. All too brief, but their fight it's not time for that fight yet. Now, he easily blocks Zoro's sword and then uses his gravity ability, I guess. I don't remember if they've actually named his ability yet, or his route and exactly explained it all, but he basically uses a lot of pressure to push Zoro underground. And Luffy tries to get out, but unfortunately the Coliseum bars are made of sea prism stone, so he can't get out. Now, of course, since they are still connected with the Dendemushis, everyone else is listening to this, and are shocked to learn that Doflamingo has an admiral on his side. Then Fujitora and Doflamingo pick up Law and head for the palace in order to finish their conversation. Zoro then gets out of the hole and tells Luffy to find a way out as they try to outrun the Marines, while Luffy's trying to still keep running with them so he could keep talking on the Dendemushi. Then, out of nowhere, Sanji's group just starts screaming on the Dendemushi, and they're like, what's happening? What's happening? What's happening? You go to Sanji's group, and out of nowhere, a singing ship appears with the flag of Big Mom on it. Now, this was just like, oh my god, like, Big Mom? After everything that's going down so far, that's been going down, and what could go down, that needs to go down, in terms of the view from an anime standpoint, the fact that Big Mom shows up is like, blows your mind. But what makes it even like more astonishing was that instead of ending the episode on it, like how it happened in the manga where they ended a chapter with that with the ship showing up, it was like right before they did like around like if you the 14-minute mark, which includes the opening. So they had at least another like 7 minutes of content after the ship initially shows up. And that's when, and then you see Tamago and Peckham's reveal that they're here to capture Caesar Clown. Now, at first you're like, oh, maybe they want to utilize his ability to create a smile. Who knows? But, he immediately, is like, oh my god, freaks out because, Caesar Clown's like, oh my god, I stole money from her, so they'll kill me if they capture me, so who knows what they really want from him. But the Straw Hats are like, who are on the ship are like, we can't go back to Dressrosa to help. Because if we do, Big Mom's ship will go to Dressrosa and prevent their plan of destroying the factory. So Luffy says, Sonny, go to Zoe. So, alright. Now just when you think, okay, when Usopp and Chopper and all, the weak trio think, oh cool, we're just gonna run away and go to Zoe. Sanji's like, Luffy, you might go over to the Yonko ship and start kicking ass. And Luffy's like, sure, why not? I already picked a fight with her, so it won't change our status anymore. And then Frankly starts leading the way, or the factory destruction team. And the episode ends, or the second to last part, Luffy states in anger that he is going to do whatever it takes to head to the palace to save Law and defeat Doflamingo, thus changing the original plan from letting Kaido kill Doflamingo to Luffy taking Doflamingo out. Now the final moments is where they dared to do it. They added a scene, a filler scene. It's a filler scene, but it's also can also be considered canon because they added an extra dick tease. At the end, they showed a mysterious person standing near one of the entrances, or like stairs that lead to the Colosseum, or like leading in front of stairs that where if he were to walk up them, he'd come into the view of the Colosseum and be able to see the fighting. Now, if you saw the special and read the manga or read the manga, you know who this is. They decided, and I would put a special note just in case nobody wants. No, they haven't figured it out at this point. This person was. They decided to tease at the end of this episode in a scene that isn't in the manga. So even though it's filler, you will not see a single fan complain. We got to see an episode early. And people are already freaking out because we got to see him in the special a couple weeks ago. So this episode was an insanely good episode. There was great amount of progression. You had Big Mom showing up. You had decent, brief encounters between characters in a fighting type of way. And then you just had that shot at the end of in the Colosseum somewhere. When us manga readers know that's not supposed to happen until the next episode. So they despite all of the issues we have with Toei Animation right now, they decided to give us a week early, which I'm sure I'm happy about, and other fans are happy about, and I'm sure you're happy about too. So any thoughts on the fact they decided to show us a week early?
Well,
and the whole Big Mom thing?
Well, I mean, anime only fans, get ready. Winter is coming.
Oh yes, this is I would call this chapter where Big Mom shows up and the chapter that the next episode is going to be based on, basically are the catalysts that just skyrockets the epicness of this arc.
Right.
Like the arc, this is where the arc goes from like being an okay arc to a contender for best arc. Now, some of you people, for your anime-only viewers, you're kind of like, how is that possible? How this arc isn't really that hasn't been that good. It's been kind of slow. Like, why the hell would you? How could you say this is the best? Could be considered the best arc? That's because you guys haven't fought where we are. Just wait. As Strider said, winter is coming. I don't even watch Game of Thrones, and I know that that's perfect for this situation.
Alright, so on to the anime section of my personal reviews. So we're going to go into Sword Art Online 2. And this episode kind of has like really two and a half, 3 parts to it. They kind of took their time in this episode. Progression was kind of slow. So it starts off with Kirito kind of surveying the area with the UAV, as I would call it, because I have played quite a bit of Call of Duty in my days. So I call it the UAV Online. So he finds out who's there, who's not. Apparently, there's there's somebody missing from there. So he's surmising that perhaps Death Gun found a way to kill somebody else. In other words, there's no proof that there's only 2 Death Guns. There could be 3. There could be 4. There could be up to 10, which are the amount of Laughing Coffin members that are left from SAO. And that's it. They kind of, recap the plan a little bit, and then that's it. They kind of spend a lot of time on it, more time than I think they should have. But anyway, so then really the second part is Darkwind coming out and getting shot by Shinon until Death Gun comes out and starts shooting at Kirito. At which the third part is this brief skirmish plus the interaction between Kirito and Death Gun. What I thought was cool was Death Gun and Shinon taking out each other's scopes. That was pretty cool. I thought that was pretty legit. And so finally, they meet and they finally start to talk, which is something I've been waiting for episodes. They actually start to talk to each other, like interact, like figure out like the missing pieces of the puzzle. And we find out that when Kirito, tells Death Gun, or Sturban, we'll say Sturban, what his method is of actually killing these people in real life, he says, you have a good imagination, but you're not quite there. So that gets me wondering, is it really correct, or is there something else? I can't quite imagine that Kirito is in any danger, like I said last week. But it would be quite the twist if one of Death Gun's assistants was, the chick who is the nurse for Kirito. That would be an interesting twist. And then we'd have to see a cat fight between Asuna and that girl. Can't remember her name. I don't know if her name is really that important, but yeah. That could be fun to watch, So, I really liked the interaction between Kirito and Sturban. I thought that was cool. We finally figure out that, his old name, he would never know because he didn't want to know his old name back in SAO when he was cocky. back when Zebra would like to have a couple words with him. And so I actually liked Death Gun in this episode. I liked Sturbin because he acted pretty cool. Like, before I didn't really care for him that much, but I thought he acted pretty cool, and, his moves were cool. He uses an S-Stock, which I think is a pretty legit weapon. I'm definitely a fan of the S-Stock as a weapon in general. One of the better types of rapiers, if you ask me. It's got like a long reach, and because like a lot of rapiers are pretty short, but S-Stock is a longer reach rapier. So, he's beating the crap out of Kirito at this point, and that I didn't expect. I'm assuming Kirito is going to win eventually because he's Kirito, but you never know. Maybe Shinon helps him. Maybe, I doubt that Sturbin is just going to outright kill him and then leave it up to Shinon. I doubt it. As far as I'm concerned, I think this Gun Gale Online is going to end within the next episode or two. And then we'll see whatever the second half of Sword Art Online 2 is about, which I think is going to be either back to Alfheim Online or another game. And I'm guessing, like, what threw me off was I thought that Sword Art Online 2 was going to end up being Alfheim Online, but going through the Sword Art Online like Aincrad. Like, that would have been kind of sick. But apparently Gun Gale Online takes precedence. We'll see if Aincrad returns in the second half. But yeah, that's the episode. I thought it was a good episode, mostly due to the interactions between Sturbin and Kirito, as well as how cool Sturbin was actually acting in this episode compared to the others. And though I would deduct points for some wasted time with recap, like, they didn't really have to go over the plan that much again. Like, that was pretty much the majority of the last episode, was talking about Sturbin and shit like that. So, yeah, that's it for Sword Art Online 2. Alright, so next we're going into the Akame ga Kiru episode this week. This episode started off where some Night Raid members were on top of the giant floating manatee or whatever, which is the danger beast that they acquired from last week's episode. And so we get to meet Chelsea for for the first formal time. Even though we saw her last week, we get to know more about her this week. And actually, the episode more focuses on her than it does Susanoo. So there's that. And so she introduces herself, and she's a bitch. She's already an unlikable character to start. Like, she's already being a bitch to mine. She prays Akame and stuff, but she's still just being a pest in general. So with that in mind, we see Susanoo build the house pretty quickly. We find out that he is a Tegu that has been sleeping until an agenda was able to awaken him, because she looks like his former master, which ended up being a he. Which is funny, because they always make jokes about Najenda looking like a man, which is, I think, pretty humorous. And, there's not much else with Susanoo except, the fishing and his compatibility with Akame, because he's very good with cooking and fishing, so he's good there. And he's a neat freak. I like that. That was pretty funny. So, then we get more of Chelsea being a bitch to mine. And then she comes out and says, like, after a month, that, you know, that Shayla and Brat were not good assassins. And when I first read this part in the manga, I was like, wow, she's really just a bitch. And it set everybody off. Although I think it set everybody off more in the manga than the anime, I think. But that aside, just before that, we get a cool fighting scene from Leone and Tatsumi, and we see that Tatsumi has gotten better with Incursio, which is nice. Leone is doing her thing. We'd see more of her, fight, like, actually fight, not just, like, one shot every enemy that she comes across, which she does tend to do. So, yeah. And then they come up with the plan to sabotage Chelsea, for the whole opening thing. And, of course, Tatsumi is the one who's charged with it, because he has Incursio and he can go invisible. But she exploits, Incursio's weakness, which is, yes, Incursio can go invisible, but you can't erase the presence. Like, that's something you have to work on yourself. And Tatsumi realizes this after Chelsea, deceives him and points out the flaw. And it looks like, Tatsumi is beginning to charm Chelsea a little bit. We find out that her being a bitch is actually her way of caring. And to be fair, I don't care. Because that does not justify the fact that you're talking shit about Brat or Shayla. It doesn't. Like, you can, say, like, it'd be a shame if you guys died. You guys should get stronger as well. But you don't talk shit about Brat, especially. And Shayla as well. They were great. And they were unfortunate, circumstantial things that killed them. Shayla, a little bit more clumsiness, because she kind of, didn't pay attention to Seiryu when she should have. But, And then we see the other side of the coin with, like, Seiryu, like, earlier on in the episode where, she's crying because, she lost Stylish. And, she had lost her parents, she lost her teacher, which Tatsumi killed very early on in the series. And so, we see the other side of the coin, like, where the protagonists have killed, people, and it's affecting, the enemy emotionally. And we see a bit of Estes's good side, her soft and, good side, I guess you could say. It's like, yeah, she's a torture person, but she's still, human, and she's still, like, cares about her subordinates, and that's what kind of makes her, a good character. She's not one-dimensional in that way. And so the ending of the episode actually is foreshadowing a big clash between the Jaegers and Night Raid. And, we'll see how that turns out. Well, I already know, but, anime-only watchers do not know, and so you guys will see how that turns out, Like, I'm telling you right now, it's obvious foreshadowing of the ending of that episode, that, they're going to clash. And it was obvious from the start, because the Jaegers were formed as an anti-Night Raid team, so, expect things like that. I'm not going to spoil too much for you there. But that part's obvious, it's not really a spoiler. And so that's the episode. I thought it was a good episode. I enjoyed it. Unlike the chapter this week, but enjoyed the episode. Okay, so lastly we have Hunter x Hunter, episode 148, and this is the last episode of the 2011 rendition of Hunter x Hunter. I say this because most likely when they pick this anime back up, it'll be Hunter x Hunter 2050 or whenever they decide to pick it back up. You never know. because it likely will not be called Hunter x Hunter 2011. That would be kind of mad. But anyway, in this episode, Gon, he climbs the world tree and meets Jing. And that's basically the episode, honestly, is them just kind of, him getting up the tree and then talking. And the interesting thing that comes out of this is, the future, and that's when Jing starts talking about the world, Zawarudo, that it is huge. Like, the world map that we know, that Gon knows, is just a small portion of this gigantic map. And so what Jing is really after is what he can't see in front of him, which is, this gigantic fucking world that he doesn't have any of the 4 requirements to get to. One of them is the means, the license, I think, and then authorization, and shit, I can't remember the last one. But to think that he doesn't have the means to get in there, that's quite interesting, because manga only, not manga only, but manga readers, we know that, this ain't too much of a spoiler, but Jing is actually quite rich. Quite rich. And so, to think he doesn't have the means is almost ludicrous in that regard. So we'll see about that. But, the important thing besides that is that the two of them are bonding, and Gon's hunt is over, essentially, because he found Jing. That was his hunt. And so that was the purpose of part 1, if you will. I would consider literally all of this is part 1 of Hunter x Hunter, which is mind-blowing, considering how just huge and how long the Chimera Ant arc was, or Chimera, whatever. That arc was huge. It was long. Yeah. And it took this long, and we're just finishing up, the beginning, or so we think is the beginning. Now, anime-only watchers, you don't have too much to catch up on if you want to read the manga from here. I think, honestly, we're only about 8 to 10 chapters in the new arc, honestly, so, now is the time to catch up if you're worried about falling behind. Trust me, you won't fall behind, because Togashi is busy playing Dragon Quest, and so he can't write Hunter x Hunter because he's hunting a Metal King slime. Is that what they call it? I can't remember. I've only played 8, and I don't think I ever beat that game. I never beat Dragon Quest 8 because I was playing it on PS3, and then my PS3 got a yellow light of death, and I just said fuck it. I don't want to go through all that bullshit again to get to where I was in my file. So that's a little off track, but so Togashi is not very far ahead of the anime, and obviously the story progression in this episode wasn't much, but it wasn't really supposed to be. It was supposed to wrap up this arc, which honestly the last episode really kind of did. So this episode was just like the button on the arc, and it was awesome. I thought this episode was friggin' amazing, especially I love the ending, especially too, because they played the full version of Departure, which that never gets old to me. I know it got old to some of you. It didn't get old to me. I loved every time it played, especially the first edition. Like the second version, more or less did kind of like get old. I was like, I want the first version back during the Chimera Ant arc. So yeah. So that was basically the episode, and then we end off with Jing's quote about you see the things that are more important that you want on the journey, stuff, something like that. And that's it, guys, for fucking Hunter x Hunter for like 15 years. See you guys. See you guys in 20. It's like if you were to commit a crime and go to jail for like, you don't see your family for like 20, you come back out, and Togashi has gotten far enough in his manga that the anime starts up, and it's like 2030, Hunter x Hunter 2030, and they're just starting the new arc. It's not, actually it'd be 2034, 2035, depending on, when they actually started up. It's just humorous because it takes forever, but at least it's amazing. At least it's not like Duke Nukem Forever, where you wait so long and then it's just shit. You wait forever and it's fucking awesome. Like Hunter x Hunter is, on the surface, it's really good, but then it's much deeper than that. Once you go like deeper into the story and what everything means, it becomes like something else entirely. Especially like I had no idea about certain like meanings behind like a lot of the interactions with Meruem and Komugi, similar to the Shogi, or not Shogi. I can't remember the fucking name of the game. Oh, Gungi. That's what it is. Yeah, Gungi. The Gungi game they were playing had like symbolism with like the certain moves and certain strategies, certain pieces. And honestly, I can't remember all of it, but it. I would encourage you guys to look it up because it's really deep and it's just amazing. And so, I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but because this is the end of the anime for a long time, I feel it's justified to just kind of talk about it. So, part 1 of Hunter x Hunter was fantastic. It really was. Obviously, this is what I'm considering part 1. It may not be officially, but, whatever. My favorite arc was York New. I love the Ant arc, whatever. It was great. I had my issues with it in the anime. I think the pacing suffered very greatly in certain spots, especially the mission. The mission took forever to get anything done, honestly, in the anime. I don't know about the manga because I didn't read that part in the manga. But it really took for fucking ever. York New, I think it was paced perfectly. It was just fantastic, the story, everything. And, oh yeah, and Hisoka wasn't in fucking the Ant arc, which is like a huge negative to me because Hisoka is my favorite character. So, yeah, York New is my favorite. I loved, the tuning exams. I mean, the Hunter exams were good. Greed Island was a bit weaker, but it was good. And then the Ant arc was, awesome. So, I mean, overall, it's been a fantastic series. And hopefully, part 2 and on is even better.